All right, this is lesson 7.4, parallel lines and transversal intro. We are in your notes packet on page number 9. Today is a day that is crazy full of vocabulary words. So you'll notice up here, there's a really big star here. These are all different vocabulary and relationships for you to know after you are done with this video lesson for today. You are going to have to keep practicing with these, which you'll see throughout our notes packet and then also in our practice packet kind of moving forward. We are also going to have some naming quizzes kind of moving forward as well, which are short and sweet, but just trying to make sure that you are good with the different names of these things. So one of the things that does not really get discussed in here in our particular lesson for today, but is pointed out here, are perpendicular and parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are going to be two lines that intersect and form 90-degree angles. So they're going to look like a plus sign, and they're going to have, these are all going to be right angles all around kind of that middle vertex there. So those are perpendicular lines. The other one that we want to talk about are parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that are going to go next to each other. They're going to be an equal distance away from each other at any given point in time. So as we move, they're never going to cross over each other. They're never going to intersect, nothing along those lines. And in fact, if you actually take a look at this whole page here, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. We actually have two parallel lines that are on this paper, and these parallel lines are marked here with these little double arrows, and those little arrowheads there are a signal to you that you can assume that those two lines are going to be parallel lines. So if you're not always sure, trusting your eyes, you can look for those little arrows, which will give you the definite that those are completely parallel lines here. So taking a look at this picture, we're going to talk about one more vocab word here, line. The vocab word for this one is the transversal. So when you have a set of two parallel lines, or even more, it could be more than two, and then you have this line that seems to go ahead and intersect both sets of these, this line right here is what we call the transversal. Trans means to go across, so this is going across, transversal, going across both sets of your parallel lines here. So like I said, you could have another couple sets of parallel lines. The transversal is still going to cross over those. I am going to put us to a double page display here for a second. So I know it's a little bit small for you guys to be able to see, but this page is all one page in your notes packet, so hopefully it's a little bit easier. We are going to start talking about the names of these different angles. So we've talked about linear pairs before, we've talked about vertical angles, and if you actually go ahead and that one. If you take a look at this picture that's right here, if we cover up the bottom part of the picture, you should hopefully be able to realize 1 and 2 are linear pairs, 2 and 3 are vertical, 1 and 4 are vertical, and so on, and we can see all these different relationships. But there actually are more vocab terms that are going to come up for us as we take a look at these in terms of a set of parallel lines with the transversal. So one of the first things I'm going to ask you to do is to realize that in between the sets of parallel lines here, we call this space the interior. So go ahead, add that into your notes for me. If the space in between the parallel lines is called the interior, the spaces outside are going to be called the exterior. So there's space up top here above this parallel line, and then there's also space that's down here below this one. So we have interior versus exterior. One of the other things that we're going to talk about is we're going to actually be using this transversal as part of our conversation. If you can take a look at the transversal, hopefully you can agree with me that angle 1 is on the opposite side of the transversal compared to angle 2. So they're on alternate sides, or back and forth, different sides of the transversal. So we're going to see that in some of the vocab terms that we see over on the other side. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to take your pencil. I'm going to have you box up angles 1, 2, 3, 4, and then also do the same thing down here with angles 5, 6, 7, and 8. These I'm going to actually call for today and for the rest of our unit here, angle clumps. So when I ask you to clump the angles, this is what I'm asking you to do, to go ahead and group those together. So we're going to be looking at them kind of as a set. The first definition and the first term that we're going to talk about today are corresponding angles. Corresponding, we've seen that word before when we talked about similar figures, and it very simply just means that we're in the same spot. When we are looking for sets of angles here within our picture, we are going to be picking one angle from the top clump and one angle from the bottom clump, with the exception of talking about verticals, which we'll get to in just a minute here. So corresponding means in the same spot, and you can think about this one like a zip line. And I'm going to start up here, for example, at angle 1, and I'm going to zip line down my transversal. And angle 1 we could have called in the top left. Zipping down my transversal, when I get to the other clump, angle 5 is in that same exact spot. So therefore, we would say angle 1 and angle 5 are what we can call corresponding angles. I'm going to put the angle symbols for the first ones, and then I'm just going to put numbers to make our life a little bit easier here. If I look at angle 2 and I zip on down, angle 6 is in the same spot. So 2 and 6 are corresponding. I've already done 1, I've already done 5, so I need to do 3. And if I do 3 and I zip on down, 3 and 7 are located in the same spots. And then on the right-hand side, if I do 4 and 8 are also in the same spots. Because they're in the same spots, when we shift the clump, those are called corresponding. And kind of another quick way to show you 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if I just go and oops, not what I wanted to do here. If I select those guys and group them together, I can just take them and I can actually shift them down, and you'll notice that they are right on top of each other there, which is kind of cool for us just to visually be able to actually see. So they're in the same spot. That's called corresponding. Our next vocab term that we're going to talk about are called alternate interior. Alternate means that we're going to flip sides. So we're going to flip sides of the transversal, and we're going to stay inside those parallel lines. So what you can kind of imagine is if we do this, we are not looking at the exterior space here. So we are just looking at those interior angles that are right there. And remember, we have to pick an angle from each of our different clumps here. So if I start with angle 3, I'm going to go to my other clump, but I also need to jump over sides, which means I'm going to be over here at 6. So angles 3 and angle 6 are a set of alternate interiors. You'll notice there's only one other set here, and that would be angle 4 and angle 5. So they're different clumps, and they are opposite sides of the transversal. The next one that we see is alternate exteriors. So what I'm going to actually do here is quick move these so that these boxes cover up my interior part, because I don't need to focus on that anymore. I just need to focus on exteriors. Same thing as with the interiors, we're going to flip sides, but we're going to be outside the two parallel lines. Remember, pick one from the top clump, one from the bottom clump. So I'm going to start with angle 1 since it's up here. It's on the left side of the transversal. So when I come down here, I need to flip sides and go to the right side. So angle 1 and angle 8 are a set of alternate exterior angles. Angle 2 and angle 7 are the other set of alternate exterior angles that we have. Over on the other column here, we're going to talk about same side interior and same side exterior. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the interiors first. So I'm going to move my boxes back to the outside so that I can just focus on the interior. And same side is exactly what you think it means. Alternate told us we had to flip sides of the transversal. Same side tells us that we're going to stay on that side of the transversal. So if I'm looking at interiors only, if I start here at 3 and I go down to the other clump, but I stay on that side of the transversal, I'm going to be at angle 5. So angle 3 and angle 5 are called same side interior angles. Also, I have angle 4 and angle 6. We can do the same thing looking for the same side exteriors. So we're going to go ahead and move our boxes so that we are only focusing on the exterior angles. And we are going to do the same thing, staying on the same side of the transversal. So if I start with angle 1 and I work my way down to the other clump, staying on the same side of the transversal, what angle do I come to? So working from 1 down, I'm going to go to angle 7 if I'm staying on the same side. For angle 2, I'm going to go ahead and move to angle number 8. The final relationship that I have pointed out here are just vertical angles. So when we talk about vertical angles, we can only use angles that are actually in the same clump. So this is not going to really work for us unless we're talking about angles in the same clump. So right here, pen does not like it when I'm working with two different sides here, with the same clump then. So if I'm looking up here just in my top clump, 1 and 4 are a set of verticals, 2 and 3 are a set of verticals. Down in the bottom clump, I see 5 and 8, and I also see 6 and 7. And those are all my different vertical angles that I have here. So A lot of vocab that just happened here, a lot of different angles, but hopefully you can see that if you just make sense of what the actual words are, it kind of helps us to understand which angles we are actually talking about. So for the next part, on notes page 10, again, I'm going to keep it double screen here so that I can look. Noticing here, these are my parallel lines right here. They're a little bit sideways, so it's okay. First thing I would always ask you to do is to clump them. And we're going to go through here. I'm going to make some marks and have to do a little bit of erasing here and there, but it'll work. So we're going to look, we have angle A and G are our first ones here. I'm noticing that they're both outside the parallel lines, but that they're on the same side. So we would call them same side exterior angles. Let me go ahead and erase those two real quick. My next set is going to be D and E. So I'm right here and right here. Notice that they're both inside, and notice that we flip-flopped over the transversal. Because we flip-flopped, we call that alternate, and they were inside, so we call that interior then. I'm going to go ahead and erase those two spots. We are going to look at angles G and B, and I'm going to have you go ahead and pick which one of these best represents. So G and B are both on the outside, and they also did flip over, so we would call these alternate exteriors then. For our next one, we have C and F. So F is right here, and C is right here. What would be our best words to describe those two? So they did flip over the transversal, so they're alternate, and they are both located on the inside, so we would call them interiors then. Erasing those, I go to B and H, and I notice those are both on the outside, and they are same side exteriors. I would hope that you are trying to take a look at these and figure these out kind of as you go as well. I'm going to start switching a couple colors here. So A and H are both on the outside, and they are on different sides of the transversal, so we would call that alternate exteriors. And for the next one, C and E, so that's here and here. They're on the same side of the transversal, and they are both inside, so I'm going to call them same side interiors. And then finally, last one here, D and F, right here and here. Those are same side interiors as well, just like that last pair that we had. All right, and for the last part, again, this one kind of is a long one, so we're on page number 11. We're looking for all these different words, so I'm going to kind of suggest that we actually take a look at the picture and kind of work backwards, because I think it's easier than trying to look at the word and then trying to figure out what the letter would have to be. So if we're taking a look at letter A, I see parallel lines. I notice that we're on the same side, and I also notice that we are interior. So we're going to call those same side interior angles. That's going to go over here with letter 8, or number 8, excuse me. Letter A goes with number 8. For B, I see 78 degrees and 102 degrees. When I add those two together, I notice I get 180, and the angles are separated, so that's going to go with supplementary. So it's going to be letter choice B goes with number 6. For letter C, while it looks like I have a set of parallel lines, these are both in the same clump down here. So it's kind of a little problematic. And that means that the only option for us here would be that those are going to be vertical. So that's going to go over here with number 5. In letter D, I'm seeing that they are in the same clump. And this one's kind of weird because they're both on the same side. Or sorry, they're in different clumps, but they're both on the same side. Top right and top right, though. So they didn't like switch sides. The one's interior, one's exterior. This is that special zip line one, and these are the corresponding because they're in the same spot. So that's going to go with number 2. Over here for letter E, we have angles 1 and 2, and notice they make a right angle here. Because of that, we called them complementary a couple lessons ago here. So that is going to go with number 4 then. For letter F, I do notice these are in the same clump, and they are side by side, and they actually form a line. So because of that, I'm going to call that a linear pair, which goes here with number 7. For G, these two angles are both on the inside, and it looks like they flip-flop over that transversal. So I'm going to call those an alternate interior angles. That's going to be letter G. H, these two angles, we're down to alternate exterior or adjacent. They are adjacent. They share the vertex. They share that common side, and they're not anything special otherwise. And letter I, then hopefully these are outside, so they're exterior and they flip-flop. So we'd call that alternate exterior. So that's going to go over here with number 3. So that is it then for this lesson about parallel lines and a transversal. So like I said, it's pretty chock full of vocabulary for you. You definitely do want to look at page number 9 just to kind of help yourself out a little bit more, and definitely do a little bit of work of just kind of looking over what those different things mean and where those angles are located, because that's going to be a big help moving forward.